Okay, so now what we want to do is go ahead and start adding some of that content that we talked about. And it's been actually kind of helpful to have these WP example content things, and we'll keep those in there for right now. But one of the things that I want to go ahead and start doing is adding some post content. And one of the things also that we had discussed is about how to categorize some of those posts. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a good practice to think about. If you have a pretty good idea of the way that you want to categorize stuff, and I strongly recommend that you always try to think of that in advance, how things could be searchable if they're posts, is to go into the category section and go ahead and build the categories out to the best of your ability. And what we had talked about having, for instance, was we talked about being able to search by city. So we're going to make a new category called city, and the slug is going to be the same. And it's important that you always make a slug with no spaces, and it's probably a good idea not to make capital letters as well. And you can put dashes and underscores, and that's fine. And we're not going to have, we're just going to leave that it does not have a parent, so that means it's going to be at the top level. And the next thing that we would want to do is if you want to give it a description, you can give it a description. Sometimes they're self-explanatory. I think city is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to go ahead and say add new category. And then what you'll see is it shows up over here, and we also have uncategorized. So we'll deal with uncategorized at some other point, but let's go ahead and add the other things that we talked about too. We also discussed having one that's called dog friendly. Okay, and then I'm going to copy that and I'm just going to paste it in for the slug. A dash is just fine. It's not going to have a parent. And then that's going to be added. And then the other one that we talked about too was neighborhood or area or something like that. And I think what I want to call it is coastal area. So we'll say that. Okay, so and the coastal area is going to have a space in it, but our slug can't. So we will do like that with a dash. And so I'll go down here and I will add new category. And again, I said you could put a description. So it's kind of helpful because then the description will show up here. Dog friendly is pretty obvious. You know, city is, I think, pretty obvious. Coastal area, we could have called it a coastal region, but that's kind of a much bigger area, I think. So so if we wanted to do a quick edit on coastal area, you'll see that it doesn't come up for description. So I'm going to cancel that. I would actually need to go ahead and edit that. So if I click it, I could also click edit, and then I can come down here and I can put sort of county, area, or zone. And it's sort of like a general kind of thing. Okay, so now I've got a description, and so you can see how that might be helpful if somebody else perhaps was like working on the website. So now I've got some categories that I can work with. Let's go ahead and we're going to add a new post. And the first one that I want to add is going to be, let's say, Coronado. And whenever I get that option, I'm going to go ahead right here in the title, and I will call this Coronado Landing. I have some content in a file, so let me pull that up. And I realized that I left out the word ferry, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in just a second. But I'm going to copy all of this content, and not down here at the bottom, that's something else. I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop it in. And this is one of those things where I had mentioned before that you might want to do a paste as text, and it'll make sure that it's pasting in plain text mode, because I might have some formatting in there that would be problematic. If you really trust your formatting, then you can stick with it. But anyway, I'm going to go up here where it says Coronado Landing. I'm going to add ferry landing. Okay, and so I've got a bunch of content, and it's, you know, it'd be nice if it was sprinkled with some pictures and stuff. But what I could go ahead and do is just see what that looks like for right now. And the other thing too that I could do is I need to go ahead and give it a category. And so this is a dog-friendly area, and the coastal area, if I click on coastal area, you see that one of the problems is that it's just city and it's just coastal area. Well, I made a mistake, right? I can't just click coastal area. I want to be able to say that it's a specific coastal area. And so let's just go ahead for right now And this is one of those things where you can use this down here and say, oh, well, I know what I intended to do. I didn't do it right. You know, or you could save this and go back over here if you wanted to. But for right now, what I can do is I can say add new category, and I can say that it's going to be South Bay. Okay, and you could even call it the Silver Strand if you wanted to, but we'll call it South Bay. And you're going to give it a parent category of coastal area. And we can say add new category. And then it doesn't show up correctly here, usually the first time, but it will correct itself. And so I can also add coastal area as a search option. It doesn't really matter. The other thing I needed to do is for city, this is one of those things where it really does make sense for me to add the city as I go. So I can add that as a parent, city as a parent, and then I can say add new category. All right, and so now I can go ahead and save this, and you'll see later that it looks okay. Now the other thing too is that I might want to put a nice little excerpt so that it doesn't just grab this first entire paragraph or the first certain number of words or letters, characters. And so you could look at this and you could say, well, this is okay for now, or it's not, whatever. So I'm going to just leave it, or I could curate an excerpt. It's up to you, really. And you might want to see what it looks like first by just leaving it. And then if you feel like, oh, this really does need an excerpt, then you can do that. The other thing too is that if I wanted to go ahead and set a featured image, I could do that, and I can see how that's going to look in this particular theme. The other thing that's nice is that if I set my featured image, then I can also see when I load new themes how it's going to deal with that featured image. So let's go ahead and click on featured image. I'm going to go to select my files, and I went ahead and I grabbed this file, and I think this is the one I want to use. Click on open, and you see it'll automatically pull it up for me, and it'll upload it, and then it's going to give me some attachment details over here, and I can either edit the image or not, but I can look at the size of the image, and this may or may not be big enough to look good, so we'll see. And we can leave the title as is. If you want to make sure that this has a caption, you could put a caption, but it definitely, no matter what, it definitely needs to have alt text. So I can put Coronado, let's just put Coronado Island for right that, or Coronado Bay. Actually, that's a picture of the bay. So we can just put that, and then if you wanted a description, you could, but most themes actually don't have descriptions, or they don't necessarily do anything with descriptions of images. So I'm going to just say set featured image, and we're going to see how that is handled with that size. And so I'll go ahead and I'll say publish. And I could have previewed it first if I wanted to do that. And then I can either click on view post and it's going to refresh in this exact page, or I can right click it and say view a new tab, which is kind of what I like to do usually. And then you'll see how it treats this in this particular theme, and that's very, very text heavy. It'd be nice to have some other pictures inside of there, but you'll see that it doesn't make the picture go full size because it's only making the picture go as large as the picture actually is. So this might not be the best picture for what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back over here, and I'll go back down where it says remove featured image. I'm going to click on that. It takes a second, and so now I need to set it again. And I'm going to leave that picture there because I might want to use it somewhere in the post because it's a nice photograph. So I'm going to go over here where it says upload files. I'm going to select my file again, and I'm going to choose this one, not that one, this one. And it's a 1600 by 880. It was a gigantic picture. Originally it was huge. It was like 3,000 pixels. Be careful not to upload anything that big to your featured image because it will actually use the large picture. But it also depends on the theme as well. But you can upload the original if you want to be able to keep it, but you got to be careful with the theme. Some themes will actually try to use the original in some areas. So I went ahead and I resized it so it wouldn't be too gigantic. And we'll see how that one ends up looking. This other one was really small. It was like 481 pixels wide. So, and then we can come over here and I'm going to change some stuff so that it actually has a nice looking title in case anyone ever opens it as a media file. And I'm going to get rid of the 1600 by 880. And I think that, yeah, I'll actually put Coronado Ferry Landing, and I'll copy this and I'll put it in the alt text, which is really important, as I said before, and I will set my featured image. And let's go ahead and update, and we'll take a peek at it over here. If I just hit refresh, then it should update with the photograph, and then you see that it has a nice photograph at the top for my featured image. And on some themes, for instance, if I were to go back to the front page, you would see that it will also show the featured image at the top of the post. And this is like the blog. And I'm not super crazy about blogs that do this, where they show the whole post. One thing that you also need to be aware of is if you don't want it to show the entire post, what you can also do is you can use that tool where you come down here, don't forget about this, and you can add that more tag and update, and then you can see what it would look like. And this is just with the 2015 theme on your blog, and you see it says continue reading. So it doesn't just keep on going forever and ever. So it gives you a nice introduction to the paragraph. You could even stop it sooner. Really, it's up to you how you want to do that. And if you really wanted, you could even put the more post like this, or the more, I should say, the more. I'm going to get rid of this. Oops, hit the wrong thing here. Let's get rid of that. And then if you wanted up here, you could put it right at the top, and you'll see how that looks too. So you can experiment with the way that some of these things end up looking, and you might like it so that all it does is show the title. This might be a good example of when it's important to actually use an excerpt, okay? So let's go back, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this more thing because I don't like it there. I just wanted to show you what you could do. And the other thing that instead of having that more break, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some key stuff out of here, and I'm going to make that part of my excerpt. And if you wanted to look at this, you could say, all right, this is important right here. The fact that it's not on an ocean, that's important. I'll scroll down. I'll add that to my excerpt. And then I will also take another piece out of it and maybe talk about what the pier has to offer, so that there's a marketplace, and maybe down to here. And I could say that it's also a fishing pier as well. But let's just let's copy that material, and then we're gonna go ahead and paste the rest of that there, and we'll just let that be the excerpt. And the other thing that I'm gonna do in addition is I think I want to add some other images peppered in here. So first thing I'm gonna do is maybe let's try after, like maybe let's just see what happens if we insert a picture right here, and if I go up to add media, see I can add it directly. And I actually kind of like that picture because it's also where it's talking about the pretty reflections in the water at night. So, and when I say insert into post, you'll notice down here now that it's not a featured image. You'll see now that because I want to put it in a post, I can tell it how to be aligned, and I can try a right alignment, left alignment. Let's do right and see what happens. And then you can tell it where to link, and I think that I'm not going to have it linked to anything. It's just going to say none. Otherwise, if you tell it to go to a custom URL, you can have it, jump over to, if it was a picture of a market, you could have it go to the market. Attachment page means that it's going to open in a brand new actual WordPress page. This is where you actually get into trouble with comments. A lot of times people don't realize that every picture that they forget to, make a change with, if it's set to attachment page, then what a lot of times will happen is people can leave comments on the attachment pages. And it's a lot of spam, and sometimes you don't realize it. Also, media file, it could just open the file in a new window. We'll just leave this at none, okay? And then you can tell it, do you want it medium? Do you want it thumbnail? How big do you want it? Let's just say we want a medium size. Insert into post, and you see how it ends up looking. So we can update this, come back over here, refresh it, and see how that looks. And that's not too bad, and you could make a decision as to whether or not you wanted a caption down there. So to add that caption, you could come back here. If you click on the picture, you get to edit, and you can go back and you can add that caption, update, and then you can update it here and see how it would look. And that looks a little bit better. So in the next demo, I'll show you how to add some galleries and how to add stuff directly to the media area.